Welcome back to Let's Play Castlevania Circle of the Moon. My name is Bright Roar, and we are traveling through Dracula's sewer system today. The underground waterway, a fairly mediocre area, but one we have to travel through nonetheless. So let's get started. Now that water, as I'm sure you saw, was red and therefore very, very toxic to our health. However, thanks to the cleansing relic we managed to pick up in the underground warehouse, it is now a clean, clear blue, safe to travel through, safe to drink. Now while it is possible to travel through the entire underground waterway without the cleansing relic, doing so is extremely difficult and highly recommended against, unless you are some sort of masochistic bastard, hell-bent on finishing the game in the most difficult manner possible. The second main feature of the underground waterway is, of course, all of these switches, these stairs, these levers. If you want to progress, you gotta flip a couple switches. And while I appreciate Konami's attempt to spice up the area, add a little bit of variety, I feel it is a failed dream, so to speak, as the puzzles are rather uninvolving, extremely linear, and they take the precedence, they take the stage, the limelight, from the other aspects of the underground waterway, such as enemies and level design. The problem with the lever gimmick is that it's not so much a puzzle as flip a couple switches and head on in deeper. There's nothing remotely difficult about it or strenuous on your gray matter, and it's just not very fun. It makes the area rather unmemorable, not unique or special. And compounding this problem is, of course, the music. Nightmare, a remix of the same track from Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, and while it gives off a creepy, isolated tone, it doesn't really do a whole lot for this area, which is already slow and boring itself. And in that sense, it's just not a memorable area, although I do feel it has a little bit more polish than the underground warehouse. For example, we don't have bosses unleashing graphical Armageddon on us, for starters. But other than that, I think it's a fairly bland area. I don't like it, and while I remember it from when I was a kid, I remember not liking it. So there you go, that's where I stand on that whole issue. A little roundup of what I think. Now, moving on to more interesting topics, we are activating a Diana combo, and Diana allows us to shoot out projectiles from our whip, such as the wind cutter you're seeing right here. And while it's a fairly cool feature, the problem with it is the high MP cost. The one we're using right now costs 128 MP per attack, which is absolutely ridiculous and useless for any practical purpose. And the only reason I'm going to recommend it is if you want to dick around and play around with the game. If you're looking for something a little more useful, of course I recommend the old standby of Mars. Now this wall kick we're about to perform right here allows us to bypass a lever in the bottom right corner, which saves both you and I a little bit of time. I don't know if this was an oversight by the developers, but I'm not complaining. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned about the underground waterway are the abundance of freezing enemies. There are 3 enemies that can freeze you, and many areas are filled entirely with these enemies. And being frozen is, of course, the same thing as being petrified. Your defense takes a nosedive, and you need to shake your way out of your frozen state if you want to move again. Now that steel armor we picked up right there adds a very, very cool plus 80 defense boost, which is something we haven't seen in a long time and is much more helpful than the old stylish suit we were wearing. It was probably in rags anyways, and a little bit of body armor will probably go a long way. Now we're just going to head to the right and chop up these frozen shades right here. They're not too difficult to defeat. You just want to watch out for the projectiles. They shoot out too, and if you get hit, you're going to take a lot of damage. Now here is a new enemy, the witch. And the witch is unique in that it respawns instantly within the same room, which makes grinding and farming a very simple task. And it drops the Mind Restore and Magic Robe, a very valuable piece of armor that we unfortunately do not receive. Now right here I'd like to point out that Nathan, unlike normal humans, does not float. Instead he sinks like a lead weight, which makes me wonder exactly what he has in his pockets that lets him do that. I'm not sure, I need an explanation, and I need it ASAP. Because Nathan is a god among men if he can just walk underwater. He's like reverse Jesus or something. Now like I said, if you want to grab all the upgrades in this area, you're going to have to do a little bit of backtracking, as you can tell. And you're not going to need to activate a couple switches. Nothing very difficult at all. But you want to grab all the upgrades here because the area is chock full of them. And they don't require any special upgrades at this point in the game to get. And speaking of which, we are rolling right along in all of our upgrades, including MP, HP, and Heart. And we're nearly done with all of them. We just collected about every single one.